their winning streak, which is currently sitting at 12. That is good to be the nation's third longest winning streak. They travel to the Citadel this evening. ETSU 18-4, 9-0 in league play. They have won 16 of their last 17 overall. The ETSU women also having a nice season at 6-1 in conference play. They're going to be back in action coming up on Thursday when they hit the road for a 3-game conference road trip that begins Thursday at UNC Greensboro. The Tennessee men's basketball team, they will be back in action coming up on Wednesday when they play host to LSU. Speaking of Tennessee and LSU, the women lose at LSU yesterday, 70-59, despite a double-double from Mercedes Russell, 14 points, 10 rebounds. Next up for the Lady Vols, Thursday, they host number 15, Texas A&M. With a sports flash on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, I'm Matt Pauley.
Okay, it's Tri-City Sports Now coming back. I'm Marky Billson. Got some giveaways here later on this week. People, I've got John McEnroe's book. Of course, I've been trying to give that away for a while. But I also have this from the Reds Caravan. This is a beautiful t-shirt that was given away. This is the new Greenville Reds right here if you're watching on Facebook Live. And we'll be giving those away here to our listeners on Tri-City Sports Now as well. That's an extra large t-shirt, so you can be the first on your block to have a Greenville Reds t-shirt. So it's Mr. Redlegs with a coonskin cap. It's actually a pretty decent logo. Ronda Rousey. Now, I'm not big on talking about pro wrestling here. Pro wrestling, it's not sport. It's, theater of stage combat. However, Ronda Rousey announced that she will be officially joining World Wrestling Entertainment. Yes, the WWE. Here we go.
For real. Yeah, I can't even believe I'm convincing myself right now. So thank you for reiterating what I was just telling myself.
Now, for me, this is big for WWE and not so big for Ronda Rousey. We got to get Chrissy Martin to talk a little bit about this. We haven't had her on in a while. Had her friend of the show. But Ronda Rousey, at one time, most famous MMA fighter, attractive, dominant, and then Holly Holm beat her about a year and a half ago. What went on? What was going on here? Lost her endorsements, one loss, one more loss in the octagon, and that was it for Rousey. She announced yesterday she'd be joining the WWE. That's big for WWE because so many people thought that MMA had absolutely overtaken in terms of combat sport. What's boxing these days? What's boxing? I mean, nobody watches boxing. We still have it, but nobody watches it. WWE, pro wrestling, the boom, it's not 1985 anymore, right? It's not the early days of TV. A lot of options out there, sort of the phoniness of it. Where else do you go? Sort of the ugly sides of wrestling. But for Rousey to join WWE is big. It's been big for the WWE. They announced they were going to bring back the XFL. The XFL that goes around now, they even were talking about that. Look, we get this. Okay, no more cheerleaders in the shower lockers, and we'll actually have coin flips. People are not, But what about doing away with halftime? That makes some sense. And you could see where things were going. The WWE was now gaining ground. Anyway, they now have a big star. Doesn't have to be somebody under an assumed name. She talks about being a full-time wrestler, Ronda Rousey.
Full-time. They got me for a multi-year deal. And we're just, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So I didn't lie about not putting pen to paper. I still haven't yet. But yeah, this is going to be my home for the next while.
And we'll see. I understood that she's taken acting lessons, which is very important for anyone in the WWE. She actually, though, is wearing Roddy Piper's jacket. I love that. I was a big Piper fan. Here's what she had to say about that.
This is Roddy Piper's jacket that his son Colton bought for me to wear tonight. And I promised him that every single day that I'm out here, the whole world's going to be reminded of his father and his achievements and what he's done for all of us, me included.
I think he's speaking of Roderick Toombs, who, well, that was his name, but I'm trying to he has a son who wanted to be an MMA fighter. And the name is Toombs, and I'm suddenly drawing a blank on what Roddy Piper's son is named. But I believe his daughter is named Ariel Toombs, and I know that she had been exploring a career in acting, but his son wanted to be an MMA fighter, which makes sense, like father, like son, right? I mean, you know. But, I mean, think about that. Didn't want to be a wrestler, didn't want to go around, you know, Randy Orton, that avenue, but instead MMA. So that tells you how big MMA is here. For Rousey, though, you know, she couldn't continue with MMA. I mean, her career there was... And the only other option that I could possibly see was judo, which wasn't going to get you the exposure for WWE. So for Rousey, I thought it was something of a step down, but a huge, just a great week for WWE. Maybe having a bounce back. I don't know if we're going to have the same era. I think that, you know, during the mid-'80s or certainly the early days of TV, I think those are once in a lifetime. But it may be gaining more relevance in the future. So look for that. And that's what I took from Rousey joining WWE. I also took the Braves, and you can see this on our 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities webpage. They introduced a new mascot called Blooper. It looks a lot like the Philly Fanatic. Early results are not positive. And the Braves have never really had a good mascot. I guess they did have Chief Nakahoma at one time, an actual physical man, you know, and he would do the breathe the fire and do the little dance out there. And then there's the teepee in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and that was deemed offensive. And then I remember the Braves around 87, they tried to rally the Brave, and they had a Brave called Homer, which was the old Screaming Indian logo put into mascot form, but Homer was never that charismatic. And, you know, the fans doing the chop, did you need a, you know, quote-unquote mascot? I think that having a mascot called Blooper is not necessarily conducive to winning. And I don't think that this mascot is going to last. The Philly Fanatic it may be trying to be. It will not last that long. I doubt that, you know. So that was my initial take on this. With that being said, hey, whatever happened to Pepper with ETSU? Remember that? I know they have Bucky, but that got to be effeminate after a while, and I'd like to see Pepper come back. Tri-City Sports Now, coming back with more.
Happy Hour Tri-City Liquor in Irwin.